on the phone. If you recall last week, we had some weather issues
Yes,
and
a lot of thunder.
a lot of thunder, and it caused some problems. And so we asked Bahaa Moukadam to join us back this week. So we have Moukadam on the telephone. Bahaa, welcome to Money Talk.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No,
Welcome back.
yeah, welcome back. Unfortunately, we didn't have really the time last week to really dedicate to you, and so we really kind of wanted to take it back, rewind, and really start where we left off. So you are the founder and the head coach of SeeMetrics Partners, and that's a business coaching organization. But again, for the folks that didn't have the benefit of learning what you all do at SeeMetrics, why don't you kind of take us to the top, and tell us exactly what it is that you do?
Yeah. So what we do, we work with CEOs and their executive team to not only put together great strategies, but also to help them bridge the gap between strategy and results that so many organizations suffer from. A lot of organizations put great strategies together, but they don't follow through. As a matter of fact, 80% of them fail at the execution part of the strategy, and that's where we come in to help companies succeed.
So you said 80% of companies don't follow through with their strategy. Is it difficult? Is it because it's so difficult to follow through to execute? Or what are the common reasons that these businesses just fail to do what they say they're going to do in their strategic plans?
Because it is difficult, and because a lot of the executive team really don't have a framework or a methodology in place that's repeatable to make sure that they link the strategy all the way down to the individual goal of every employee and kind of roll it up. And they get caught up, typically after they do the planning session, they get caught up in firefighting and in the busy every day, and they get their eye off the ball in terms of executing and following through.
So Baha, let's take this. Let's go all the way to the 20,000-foot level. When you talk about strategy, what is it? What is it exactly that you're referring to, and what do you mean by a strategic plan?
Well, strategy, it really involves exactly what are you going to offer, how are you going to be different, what it have multiple elements in it. What is your offer, how is it differentiated, what is your target customer and market, what sandbox do you want to play in, and then all the way, once you figure that out, it's taking it into specific pieces. Where are you going to be 5 years from now? And then rolling it back, what's your goals for this year, and what's your priorities and initiative for the upcoming quarters to get there. So it has all these different elements into it.
In your case, then, do you think, so basically what you're saying is, you start from the very, big picture, what is it that you want to achieve? And then you break that down, okay, what do I need to do to achieve that? And then what do I need to do to achieve that? And then you just keep breaking it down into bite-sized pieces so that at the end of the day, you have somewhat of a roadmap. Am I understanding you correctly?
That's absolutely right. And one of the really key tools we used in that portion is what we call the one-page strategic plan. A lot of CEOs say, well, I got to get everybody on the same page, but when I ask them where's that page, they discover they don't have a page in the first place. So we start by helping them put together a one-page strategic plan that have all the key elements in it, to make it easy to share, easy to understand, easy to follow through on.
You touched on a point that I think a lot of times we fail, and I've run companies in the past as well, and I can tell you that when you're at the top of the organization, a lot of times you tend to sort of get lost in the clouds, if you will. You're so busy with strategy, you're so busy with the big picture stuff, dealing with the various stakeholders of your board of directors, if it's investors, whatever it might be, that a lot of times you fail as the top guy, as a CEO, to actually do what you just said, which is kind of drill down and down to the employee level. How critical is it, in your opinion, that every employee know what an organization's strategic plan is?
It's absolutely essential. It's essential to know not only what the plan is overall, so they're excited, motivated, and engaged in their job, but then they also got to know exactly how what they do every day fits into and support that strategy, including way to get constant feedback from their manager about how are they tracking towards their goals, what adjustment needs to be made. So that's absolutely essential.
And so what's the best way? What is the best way, in your opinion? Let's say we've got a CEO listening. Let's just, for example's sake, let's say he's got a 100-person company. He's got people in the field, salespeople. He's got people in the back office, accounting, and so forth. In an organization like that, what is the most effective way for him to sort of spread the gospel, if you will, make sure that all his employees, I mean, do you give them a copy of a document? Do you get them all in one big room? You know, what works for companies in order to get their employees to sort of learn what the company's all about?
Do you do the Gordon Ramsay thing and just shove it down their throats?
Just yell at them, cuss at them?
Yes. Yeah, no, you avoid that if you can. But really, one of the best ways to do it is to institute, to get everybody engaged and aligned. One of the key tools we encourage people to do is to institute what we call a meeting rhythm throughout the organization. And a meeting rhythm include all the way from daily huddles that everybody participates in, every group, not necessarily all 100 people, but every team participates in a daily huddle. That's usually less than 15 minutes. Every team have a quarterly staff meeting, and then the executive team and team manager have monthly strategic and review session, and then they do quarterly planning. So to get into this meeting rhythm will ensure that everybody has real-time connection day to day to what's going on and how they're contributing to the organization.
Now, let me ask you this. You know, one of the things as a CEO, as a manager, as someone responsible for people, you know, one of the criticisms that I always get is, haven't we had enough meetings? I mean, do we need more meetings? How do you rebut that criticism about having these daily meetings, these weekly, monthly, quarterly? I mean, you know, how do you go back to these folks that are criticizing that and say, no, here's why you need to do that?
Yeah, that's pretty common things. You get pushback from people, well, we already have too many meetings. The reality is the daily huddle, for example, eliminates the need for a lot of emails going out, a lot of miscommunication, a lot of follow-on meeting, actually. It actually could reduce the number of meetings and have everybody being able to focus throughout the day doing the work instead of participating in all these meetings. Because if you really think about a daily huddle, less than 15 minutes, weekly team meetings, monthly and quarterly, and in between, you could eliminate a lot of other meetings that become redundant or unnecessary.
Well, in terms of, so we, you know, meetings are important. And I actually do believe that meetings are important. I think it's important to kind of get back on the same page every day to make sure that no one's kind of straying from what we're trying to accomplish, let's say. What kinds of, when we're speaking about meetings, what kinds of practical tips or what bit of advice would you give these managers, these CEOs about how to best make use of meetings?
Well, they got to prepare. They got to have an agenda ahead of time. Only people that are needed for the meeting, that are contributing, should attend those meetings, and not just extra people sitting there, or you know, not contributing. And then they got to be one of the most effective way to have really good meeting is at the end of each meeting use what we call the WWW tool, which is a very simple tool to say what did we decide, who is responsible for it, and when is it due, and capturing that, because at the end of almost every meeting, if you don't do that, everybody will have different ideas of what was decided and who's going to do what's next. So really closing the loop with the WWW is really effective way to have the meeting more productive.
That does sound like a great tool. And is that something that the meeting organizer would then do? The person who's in charge, he would then go ahead, or she would go ahead, and at the end of the meeting type something up, email it out to everyone saying, hey, here's what we talked about, here's what we agreed to, and here are the people that are accountable for delivering on these things?
Yeah, ideally they'll summarize that while everybody is still in the room, and then they will send it out after the meeting. Absolutely.
That's a great tool. Anything else? I mean, what other bits of advice would you give to, let's say, let's say the first-time CEO, someone who's moved up the ranks, gets the nod, gets placed in that CEO position, but really has never been in that role, has never been in the trenches. What kind of advice would you give to that first-time CEO?
Well, one of the biggest people struggle with is back to execution. We started talking about that briefly last week, but one of the key things to significantly improve execution is three things, right? Three things. Number one, you got to set clear priorities, and you can't have too many, right? A lot of people have the mistake of thinking that if I have 8 priorities, I could get more done. Where in reality, for most companies, each quarter you got to have one priority. Now you
One
may have
priority per quarter.
one priority for a quarter. Maybe you have multiple initiatives to support that priority. Priority used to be a word that you shouldn't have a priorities. Priorities didn't exist till recently. By definition, priority is a singular thing. So that's really critical, number one. Number two is really to on a regular basis, collect and analyze data and metrics and see how are you tracking toward your KPIs on a regular basis. And the third execution discipline is what we talked about earlier, is that meeting rhythm, daily huddle, weekly meeting, monthly and quarterly, and then annual planning session. If the CEO learned nothing else, if they focus on those three execution disciplines, they're going to be a lot better off getting results.
Right now, and let's kind of, can you sort of describe for me the difference between, let's say, a priority and supporting initiatives?
A big priority, for example, it could be to penetrate like a new country. You know, we want to start doing business. We want to penetrate Germany as the key priority for the quarter. Initiatives could be, well, we're gonna hire a country manager, right? As one of the, we're gonna find a location, a business location to lease out, and then boom, boom, boom. There's 3 or 4 initiatives supporting that one priority to penetrate a new country, as an example.
Okay, and so really, what you're saying is, don't spread yourself out too thin. If you spread yourself out thin, you're not going to be able to finish anything. And so, stay focused, close it out, get it done, and then move on to your next.
Absolutely. And one of the toughest things, also, a lot of people creating lists of what they do want to do. And I encourage people to also create a list of things you're going to stop doing or not do explicitly.
I've got a long list of those, by the way.
Because to those that are listening, if you just apply and you're not a CEO, you're a CEO of your life.
Right. That's a good point.
And sometimes, it's these things like, having, I talk to so many creative people and so many artists, that if they would apply this in their business or in their, or their life, all the things that you just said, they can become successful. Even that list that you just talked about.
Right, right. Well, and that's a great point, because so many people that I know, they go through life without that formal plan. I mean, they want to be successful. You say, well, what do you want to do? And they really can't tell you what it is that they want to specifically achieve. And so until you get it down and set that up as your priority, and then set up, like Bahaa said, those multiple initiatives backing up that priority, until you do that, you're kind of taking a shot in the dark. You're just waiting for things to happen for you. That's great advice. So, well, Bahaa, we're at the end of our segment. What else before we wrap up with you? Do you think is important for our CEOs listening out there?
Well, another thing to see, like any business problem could really fit in one of 4 categories, right? There are 4 key decisions that every CEO needs to really understand to scale up their business, and those are around people, strategy, execution, and cash. Those are the 4 key decisions that every CEO needs to keep in front of them and make sure they're addressing each one simultaneously and making sure they don't have any weaknesses across. Because if you don't have cash, cash is like oxygen for a business. You're done.
Right,
if you have a great strategy but you're not executing, it doesn't matter. If you don't have great people, if you don't have the right people in the right seats doing the right things, you're not going to get anywhere. So those are simple tools and a framework and methodology to keep the CEO focused. Those are the blueprints of how to succeed and how to scale up your business.
Fantastic. So, Bahaa, if there's a CEO out there that wants to get in touch with you to discuss some of these points to sort of help you or have you help them, become more successful, how do they reach out to you?
The best way is to go to website, SeeMetrics, SeeMetricsPartners.com. That's SEE Metrics Partners.com, and they could fill a request for a call with me, and I'll be happy to engage with them.
Fantastic. Well, Bahaa Moukadam, founder and head coach of SeeMetrics Partners, thank you for joining us on Money Talk this afternoon.
Thank you. Have a great one.
And we'll be back with more Money Talk after these messages.
Some people got to have it. Hey, hey.